What's the worst thing you can see when your lover is a firefighter? That evening, I felt like I'd stepped out of a fairy tale. I wore a long blue dress, my hair done just right, makeup carefully applied. Jake was finally going to meet my friends at the wedding, and I felt that tonight was going to be special, a chance to feel like a normal couple, even if, with him being a firefighter, normal wasn't something we got much of. We had just arrived at the location when I heard his phone ring. He answered the phone with a tense expression. There was a fire in the city, and they needed every hand. My heart sank, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "You have to go." He looked at me with regret, almost pleading, but we both knew he'd go. With a quick kiss, he whispered an apology and was gone, leaving me standing alone outside the reception hall. Inside, I did my best to blend in, but I felt so out of place. I watched couples dancing, friends laughing, and it hurt to think that, in a way, I was alone, even in my own relationship. The longer I stayed, the more doubts crept in. This was my future, wasn't it? Always wondering, always waiting, never knowing when he'd be called away. I started thinking, maybe this wasn't the life for me. I decided, sitting right there, that I'd talk to him. I was ready to let go. Later, I got home, and just as I was closing the door, my phone rang. It was Mom, her voice shaking, telling me that Dad's office building was on fire. Before I knew it, I was in a cab, rushing across town, a knot of fear tightening in my chest. When I arrived, the scene was a blur of lights and smoke, firefighters everywhere. I scanned the crowd, desperate to see Dad. And then, I saw him, sitting on the curb, covered in soot, looking dazed but alive. Relief washed over me so strongly I almost cried, but then my gaze shifted, and I froze. There, standing beside him, exhausted and covered in ash, was Jake. He'd been the one to save my father. Everything I'd thought earlier at the wedding, the doubts, the frustration, the feeling of loneliness, just melted away. I realized then what I'd taken for granted. This wasn't just a job for him. Saving lives was who he was, and I loved him for that. I went up to him, wrapped my arms around him, and felt his exhaustion and strength all at once. He saved people, no matter the risk, no matter the cost. In that moment, I knew I'd stand by him, because loving him meant loving his courage, his commitment, his sacrifices. It meant loving all of him, even on the days I felt alone. He was my hero, and I couldn't be prouder.